Morning folks, hope you're all doing well out there. So it's a bit of a misty, darker day here in Aberdeenshire in northeast Scotland. What a fine day. Just been doing our morning chores. The chickens are still here in the Westfield silvopasture, but the goats and the geese have both moved on. So the chickens behind me there, they're in the second last cell. We're going to be hopefully moving them into the last cell in the system today. We moved the geese yesterday evening back into Goose Wood, and we just took the goats up this morning to graze in quite a wooded cell above Goose Wood. And the goats had been grazing here in a weedy grazing cell that we'd neglected really over the last couple of years. We spoke about this in the last vlog. So they've been in here about a week. I've done a pretty good job for us. Remember, it's just 2 goats and one of them is pretty elderly. They've definitely nibbled the heads off of some of the thistles and the docks. We made a sowing of some mixed grasses and forbs because we're wanting to encourage more of a diverse grazing mixture here for the animals. And we sowed that just as we put the goats into the cell, and that has all germinated well. The goats hopefully helping to trample it into the seeds into the soil a bit for us. So that's gone to plan, which is great to see. So the goats are now up above Goose Wood, enjoying browsing on willows and alders and some of the rough grasses that we've got in that cell. And the geese are very happy behind me here to be back in Goose Wood. So it's been a good wee while. I can't quite remember off the top of my head how many weeks it's been since they were in here. Last animal to be in this system was the chickens, and they went in there after the geese. So it's been a wee while since the geese were in here, but it's a great length of grass for the geese. They're really enjoying it and grazing very well. So yeah, good to have them in there. So today we're going to be just finishing off some of these moves for the poultry and the goats. We've got to take up the goose house / goat shelter. We're going to carry that very unwieldy thing up this hill, up this laneway, up to where the goats are grazing, so that we can give the goats a bit of a shelter if they need to get out of any bad weather, just to stop Rosa having to fetch them down the hill and over to the byre, which is behind me there. So we're going to do that next, move the goose house. Then we're going to head over to the market garden, maybe via the tomato tunnel so that Rosa can give you an update on the tomatoes. Head over to the market garden for this afternoon. We've got a lot of weeding to do. We're going to be carrying on with some of our experiments in turning over a bed using no-till or no-dig methods. We're slowly transitioning most of our market gardening into a no-till approach. We haven't used our rotavator for several months now, and slowly figuring out the ways that we can work with our crops and our business in a no-till approach. So yeah, again, at this time of year we get a little bit more time to work with the animals, so a morning spent working with the livestock and then an afternoon in the market garden. Break some of these branches off of this pollarded sycamore, because they're sticking out through the pathway that we're going to bring the goose house along, and we can feed them to the goats. Snapping off quite easily, which is good. Pollarded this tree last April, so everything from here up is a 1.5 year growth. Really great pollard tree, really good forage crop for the goats. I've been meaning to go into a bit more detail about some of the tree systems we've got here, the pollarding, the coppicing, silvopasture that we use. But yeah, that's a great amount of growth. Great, can either dry this as tree hay, feed it directly to the goats. got the goose house, goat shelter up to where the goats are just now. The amount of times we've had to move that heavy thing around. Ideally we will be building small goat shelters placed strategically around their kind of grazing cells and fields and grazing areas. But as a lot of you out there know, good plans don't always happen as quickly as you want them to. The goats are enjoying that tree hay I cut from the sycamore. We just stopped with the shelter here. Did you see our cat taking a ride just then? Morris took a ride with us from the west field up to here. We've come from back there. You can see the silvopasture system, the tree rows. So we've just kind of walked down through the thick hedge there, up a laneway, over a bridge, and up into this area of the farm. Hey. So you can see we're using a different fence to keep the goats in place today. Rosa's just getting some straw to put in the house, and that should be the goats happy. So yeah, goats done. So I don't know if anybody noticed in some of the opening shots when I was letting out the chickens this morning, there was another small structure in that grazing cell where we've got the chickshaw with some aluminium roofing. Well, that's a little chicken tractor of sorts that my mum and her partner Andy made for us last weekend. This is so that we can get the chicks out of where they are at the moment, which is the straw yard. We want to get the chicks out, get them integrated into the flock, and we thought they still need a little bit of protection, either from being bullied by the hens, which can happen when you unite or reunite chickens with one another. There can sometimes be a bit of a pecking order problem. So that's going to help with that. It also stops them escaping, because at this age they'll still be able to slip through the holes in the electric netting. Even if the electric netting is on, they can still somehow muster up the courage to get through those holes. And just a little bit of protection from predation from magpies and crows. So we'll have a look at that later. But they're only going to be in there for maybe another week or so, because they're growing very quickly. But until then, we're going to be moving it every day. With our grazing systems here, which are notoriously lumpy and bumpy, with different ages of grass, what have you, we're going to cut that cell or field or paddock just to make it easier to move that chick house on every day, because we're going to be dragging it along the grass. It's not on wheels, and at the moment it's getting caught on all the tussocks of grass. So we're going to use the BCS and scythe and cut that down. It's a bit of an experiment. We've been trying to avoid mechanically cutting our grazing systems. Sometimes it's very tempting to top the grass after the animal has been grazing in there. This year we're wanting to experiment by not doing that and letting it grow back from either being grazed or trampled down by the goats and the geese. But because I feel the need to cut the grass to make a job easier for moving these chicks, it'll still be interesting just to be able to compare a cut field to a field that's been managed by leader grazing and trampling. So yeah, we're always wanting to test things out here. We're always learning. Every day is a school day for us. We're learning and working, and that's what's enjoyable about everything that we do here is being able to test out a lot of these ecological theories and farming practices that we're all reading about or seeing on YouTube. This is a living and working demonstration site for permaculture design. We're quite happy to make mistakes and to learn from them, which pretty much happens on a daily occurrence.
So we just thought we'd just give you a quick update on the tomato tunnel and just report on the varieties that we've been growing this year and how they're going. In general, as a tunnel, this has been working really well. I'd say it's definitely a bit shadier than our other tunnel, so it doesn't receive as much daylight, but it has been obviously better than growing them outside, and they've been growing really well in what was the old goat bedding. So yeah, I think in general it's so far been a success. No disease or pests. Got some frogs we've been finding in here, lots of spiders and things, so I'm sure that they've been helping. We've got 4 varieties, 4 rows of tomatoes. There was some wonderings whether they were a bit too close together, but so far I've found no issues. I've pruned them reasonably heavily, so pretty much taken off all the leaves up to just, yeah, I mean basically about halfway up the plant, to allow for more airflow. I generally water with a can, about one 13-litre can for each of these rows of about 12 or 13 plants once a day, and I water at the base of the plants mainly just to avoid getting the rest of the plant wet, which could lead to fungal disease. Just the other day pinched out the tops of these tomato plants, so that's because they've got 4, or sometimes because I've left it a bit too late, for more than 4 of the flowering trusses. So that means that hopefully they'll have enough energy and time left in the season to ripen plenty of these tomatoes that they're now growing. I've been amazed at the amount of tomatoes actually on a lot of these trusses, so fingers crossed that they will all ripen, but I've been picking them very consistently pretty much every day to try and, although this is just the start of the season of them starting to ripen, I'm trying to get it so that we have enough to give everyone in the box some tomatoes one week. Last week was our first week of tomatoes for the box. That was for the larges and extra larges, but not the smalls yet. So we need a good portion to give about 46 good shares of tomatoes. So that might come maybe next week, I'd imagine. This first variety on the side here, this is actually a short vine variety of tomato called Wentzell, W-E-N-T-Z-E-L-L. I actually chose 2 shorter vine varieties for the size of this very small polytunnel because I knew that the curve on the roof of the polytunnel would get in the way of their growth a little bit. They're doing really well, these ones. These grow into a very large beef tomato. I love these kind of tomatoes because it's like a steak when you cut it up into kind of rounds. It's obviously quite tough to get a tomato like this to ripen really successfully in our climate. This is meant to be for a kind of slightly shorter season. I have recently picked the ripe tomatoes in here, so there's not that many ripe ones, but we have had a few from these plants. The flavour has been really good, but it's been slightly on the mealy side, so it's still been nice on like a piece of toast, just like this massive slab of tomato, but yeah, it could maybe be a bit better. Maybe if we'd have had a slightly better summer, it might have been a bit more successful. But yeah, I think I would grow this one again just because of the size of tomato and the shape, and the flavour is really good. And they have grown well. So these are kind of probably my 3rd favourite out of the 4 varieties in here. So this one is called Purple Ukraine, so would imply, yes, it's kind of Eastern Europe rather than America, this one. And I've been loving this one so far. This is one of the bigger ones that we've gotten off of this. I mean, I love the variety in shapes on this. They tend to veer towards more of a kind of plum tomato, which I just love the shape of anyway. I think I just seem to love all the shapes of tomatoes actually, but there's a variety of sizes, obviously, but some have got almost like a banana shape to them. I don't know if that's because of how we're growing them, but there's one down there that's like a curved long one. And some growing really big. I mean, this is one of the bigger ones. I picked one from the big polytunnel yesterday that was even bigger than this one. So we'll see how the big ones on this do, because I haven't picked any that are much larger than this, to be honest, so far. This doesn't look ripe, and it's not quite ripe, but actually they don't go bright red, these ones. They're more of a kind of an indescribable colour. It's like light bronzy lilac brown red. Very tasty. These ones are really nice. It's beautiful when you cut into it, even though it may look like a slightly bland colour. When you cut into it, you've got some really nice kind of khaki greens and pinky reds that complement each other really well. Aside from that, I think it's a really, really good flavour, this one. And if you pick them at the right time, which I tend to just as they've gone ripe and let them ripen a day or so in the house, that seems to, for some reason, result in them being a lot less mealy. So these ones are really tasty, and these are my, I think, favourite. They also started producing fruit almost as early as the next variety, but second earliest in here, and they also are really heavily bearing, whereas the Wenzel here isn't that heavily bearing, although they're quite large fruits. And again, this is Purple Ukraine, available from Real Seeds. Oh, one thing to note about this one, the leaves look curled from maybe dehydration. This is just what the leaves look like on this plant. I don't know why, it came with the description of them, but that's just something to note. So they are perfectly well watered and happy, and if you grow them yourself, don't forget that. They may just look a bit sad, but they are perfectly happy and will produce lots of fruit for you. Little baby. Oh. So this variety here is the other best performing tomato this year, and this is called Stupice, Stupice. I think this variety is from Bulgaria. It has produced by far, I think, the most fruit, although I would say I don't think the flavour is quite as good as the Purple Ukraine. I mean, I've been picking ripe fruit from them every day for a while now, and they're just incredibly heavily bearing. The leaves are quite large. All of these tomato plants have something quite unusual looking about them. These have almost kind of potato shaped leaves, but very big ones. Again, these huge cascades of fruit. And I would say that, yes, if you're looking for a tomato variety that seems to bear very heavily in a kind of shorter season and colder climate, this is probably the best out of all of them so far. I mean, look, that's just like, it's so heavy. There's so many tomatoes on these plants. Okay, so final variety in here is the Ruby. It's another short vine tomato, so hence why I put it on the other side of the polytunnel. Don't want to be a downer on this one. It's my least favourite probably though this season. I've just pinched out the tops of these. They've got 3 or 4 flowering trusses on them at the moment, but they've really been the slowest to develop. So they've got a lovely kind of chunky central stem and seem to be the healthiest at the beginning of the season. But I picked my first ripe tomato yesterday from these guys. This one I'll probably pick in a couple days. But yeah, they're just not producing as much fruit by far as the other plants in here and as the other varieties in here. They're just not ripening as quickly. But I have not tried one yet. I have not tried the one that I picked yesterday. It might be really, really delicious. So just gonna wait and see. I don't want to shoot this one down before I've given it all of the tests, including the taste test, which is kind of the most important. But all in all, I'd say all of these tomatoes have done really well so far this season, and yeah, I think we've learned quite a lot with what we might grow next year. One thing that I have regretted this year is not growing the Latar tomatoes. I did sow some early in the season along with these guys, but didn't have space in this tunnel. Didn't have the time to make a whole bed for them. Well, I didn't have the space for them in the other polytunnel. and just decided to, and had planned to maybe make a little outdoor bed out here, but it just, time got away with us and we didn't get to. So I did throw them in quite late after letting them get a bit sad in their pots into a very weedy bed outside of this polytunnel, and they produced ripe fruit outside after being stunted as well and totally neglected in a weedy bed with no love before any of these tomatoes did. So I think they showed me a little bit that I should be working with those tomatoes. So next year, I think we'll probably try one full outdoor bed in the market garden of, hopefully, of those, of the Latar tomatoes, because they really are delicious and very productive, and seemingly so in Scotland. And that's the tomato update as of now.
I really am benefiting a lot from this tunnel because Rosa has put a huge amount of work in to looking after this as a project, and of course I'm getting to taste the results, which are fantastic. That is the cell cut. Didn't take me too long with the tractor. Now there's a few things we could do here. If I've got time, I'd probably like to rake up this grass. We could utilize it as a mulch. We could mulch the rows of wood fuel trees that we've got growing here in the silvopasture system. Because I don't have much time at the moment, it's going to be just left for a while. The chickens will enjoy scratching through it. I don't want it to be too detrimental to the regrowth of the grass, so I'll just keep an eye on it, see how it dries. I might have to just move it around a bit with a rake, but that's no hardship if I can find the time. So in theory we can move the chickens now, which involves moving the chickshaw, and then we've got our new chick pen that my mum and Andy built us. So we'll be able to bring that over. And then tonight, when the chicks and mother hen are roosting, we're going to bring them over and kind of integrate them into this new system that way. We'll get the chickshaw first.
Yep. Where are we going to put it? Right where I put that water, or?
I wonder if we could get it up the top, since it's quite flat now.
Yeah.
And then it's just moving it downhill every day. Alright, the chickens are escaping. That's alright. We'll just stay calm, it doesn't matter. I'm sure we'll get them back. They're spreading out into the woods here. And why wouldn't you? I would like to investigate that if I was a chicken. We're just going to move the chickshaw into the new cell. Try and find the chickens. I'm going to move the new chick house now. I managed to get most of the chooks back. I think we're missing about 4. You can hear them scratching around in the poplar coppice up in the hayfield behind me there. So I'm sure they'll come back as evening draws on, and we might find them hopefully congregated at the entrance here to come in. So it was much easier to move the chickshaw with the cut grass. Really much easier. So we took it all the way up to the top of the hill so that my daily moves are just coming downhill. We've positioned the new chick tractor close by, so I think that's great. They should be really safe in there. So if all goes well, we'll get them when they roost tonight. We'll go and pick them off and bring them over here.